Welcome to Fair Comment. This is episode 2 and probably the most important episode of Fair Comment in the near future. Before we get to why it's the most important episode of Fair Comment, let me just tell you a small story. There was a satyagraha in Peta outside the Fort Railway Station in Colombo, and in the middle of the gathering there was a lady, probably in her early 80s, walking through the crowd in what I can only describe as deep distress. And when she came within the frame of a television camera and began speaking to those around her, she said something I want you to hear. She said, "People will be angry with me for saying this, but mothers should never send their children to war. Mothers should not send their children to the military if they have to see how those children are being treated now." She is the mother of 4. 3 of her sons joined the Sri Lankan army. One was seriously wounded in battle, another is serving today. Her third son, his name is Suresh Sallay. Today, Suresh Sallay is dying in the Colombo National Hospital. I want to take you to the law that has put a decorated military officer in that hospital bed. The Prevention of Terrorism Act was the law that was used to detain Suresh Sallay. I want to tell you something about the Prevention of Terrorism Act. A secret. I will tell you that secret now. And it's not what you think. Suresh Sallay, a retired Major General, a former director of our state intelligence service, a man who, whatever you believe about him, served this country. And tonight he sits in an emergency unit because he refused food, he refuses water, he refuses his medicine because of the horrendous treatment he has received in the hands of the Criminal Investigation Department. Now, I am not here to tell you he's innocent. That is not my job. I have said so previously. It is not yours either. My job tonight is to ask the questions a fair investigation should have asked and did not. So let us go through it one fact at a time. Fact 1. On the 21st of April 2019, 269 people were killed in our churches and our hotels on Easter Sunday morning. We all remember where we were at that moment. Fact 2. Among the dead were 5 Americans, 5 citizens of the United States, and I'm not telling you this, the United States government is telling you this in its own official report. Just this morning, a Somalian referee was turned back after he had the visa, landed in Miami airport legally. He was turned back because there were vetting concerns about him. Now, why is this story all of a sudden important here? I'll tell you why. When America loses 5 of its own people to a terror attack, it does not forget, it does not say quiet, the FBI was in Colombo within days. Fact 3. I want you to listen to this very carefully. In June 2023, 4 years after the bombing, Suresh Sallay walked into the United Nations in New York, in America, and was invited to speak at the world's conference on fighting terrorism. Suresh Sallay landed in the United States, went to New York, delivered his lecture, and came back. The man who is accused of killing 5 Americans. Think about what that means. Now, this man, who our government now calls the mastermind of an attack that killed 5 Americans, and America said nothing, not a word. So either the most powerful country in the world somehow missed him, or there was nothing for them to find. You decide which one makes sense. For 7 years, one man has cried for justice louder than anyone in this country, His Eminence the Cardinal. 7 years of letters, 7 years of commissions, 7 years of pain that never went silent. And in all those 7 years, the man the Cardinal asked justice from was never the man this government has now arrested. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry, the highest inquiry this country has ever held, did not name Suresh Sallay once. Not once. Fact 5. A presidential committee looked into this exact story, the Channel 4 story on which this arrest is built on. It was led by a former Supreme Court judge, an Air Force chief, and a President's counsel. And they found the story was false. They found Sallay was out of the country. They found the places the accuser described did not even exist. And what did the government do with that report? They hid it. So now I have some questions, not accusations, just questions. The real questions a real investigation would ask. This whole case stands on one man, Azad Maulana. Speaking from France, Azad Maulana says, Sallay sent him to one of the suicide bombers to take his phone. to go to a man wearing a live bomb, Abdul Latif Muhammad Jamil, and take away his mobile phone. Let me understand this properly. A general, a man who helped finish a 30-year war, a master of intelligence. And his great plan was to send a messenger to walk up to a human bomb and confiscate his telephone. I am not saying it, Azad Maulana is saying it. Is that this mastermind that we are supposed to be afraid of? Suresh Sallay is that stupid? Not by any account from anyone who served alongside him who claim that he is simply brilliant in what he does. Professor Rohan Gunaratna, world-leading counterterrorism expert, described Suresh Sallay as one of a kind, one of a generation. Not me, the world-leading expert on counterterrorism. What was the reason, they say, that Suresh Sallay apparently masterminded this Easter Sunday attack? The allegations, those who allege, say that this was to frighten the people of the country, to bring the Rajapaksas back into power. Let me give you fact 6. This is the most interesting and the least spoken fact. In February 2018, more than 1 year before the single bomb went off, the Rajapaksa vote had already the biggest election this country had ever held. The SLPP and the SLFP voter base together was the largest force in the land at the local government election. The government of the day was falling apart in front of our eyes, the Maitri Ranil government, and the whole country could see where 2019 was heading without the presence of the Easter Sunday bombings. Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the SLPP had already won the election that was to come. By that time, they had amassed about 6.4 million votes. Easter Sunday gave Gotabaya Rajapaksa only another 400,000 votes. So are we to believe in 2018, after the Gotabaya SLFP faction won 6.4 million votes, they would take such a massive risk just to get a few more votes? 400,000 votes? All of that aside, there's one more question that holds all these facts together. If the case against Suresh Sallay was so strong, why use the PTA? Charge him straightforward. Convict him straightforward. Send him to the gallows if the law demands it. They arrested him under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, the very same law this government promised in its own election manifesto to abolish, the same law their own Prime Minister once said could never be justified. So why reach for a law you swore to destroy? I will tell you why, and once I tell you why, you will not be able to forget it. Under normal law, Azad Maulana would have to come here to Colombo into a courtroom, take an oath, and answer questions from Saleh's lawyers. A man whose story a Supreme Court judge has already called false and thrown out would not last 10 minutes in that witness box. But here is where the PTA gets very, very interesting. Under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, there is a small golden nugget, a provision called Section 16 under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, there is a small golden nugget, a provision called Section 16, which is by far the most damaging piece of legislature in Sri Lanka. And the law itself has a name, admissibility of certain statements. Listen to what Section 16 does. Under our ordinary law, a statement made to a police officer cannot be used against you in a court. It's thrown out. But under Section 16 of the PTA, a statement made to a senior police officer, an assistant superintendent or above, becomes evidence, and it gets worse. Normally, the state must prove your statement is true. The state must prove you're guilty. Under Section 16, the burden flips. It is you who must prove why that statement has to be thrown out. Challenge me on this if you can. And so follow what this means. Azad Maulana never has to come at all. His statement recorded far away, handed to a senior police officer, becomes evidence under Section 16 without that witness ever standing in our country's court. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the whole thing. That, ladies and gentlemen, is this entire game that this government is playing at the cost of moral corruption. The only way they can even attempt to convict Suresh Sallay, the PTA was not used to catch a terrorist. The PTA was used so that the one witness who cannot survive cross-examination would never have to answer one. They did not choose the law to find the truth. They chose it to make sure the truth would never be tested. And tonight, a man lies in a hospital bed starving himself because the government that promised to bury this law picked it up and used it on him, a decorated military officer. So go through the facts. So I ask all of y'all, before I read the next bit, please subscribe. Help us build this channel. We will bring you good content. And if you are not going to subscribe at this moment, you probably will subscribe when I finish my editorial, because I am going to give the nation a gift. So go through the facts again. Count them slowly and ask the only question that really matters. If the government's case is true, why are they afraid of that one question? Why the PT? Now we come to the editorial of this podcast. So many podcasters in Sri Lanka, some of whom sadly never knew what the war was, sit behind a camera and spew so much of insults. It has come to a point where they even question whether Sallay's wife is real, whether how old Sallay's mother is, whether Sallay's son is a real child, or whether this whole thing is a big piece of drama. Some of them even question the validity of the evidence that is being presented in court. Some of them even say that the hidden files, the files that were never released to the public, contain the secrets that would ultimately convict Sallay. Fair Comment has been in possession of these documents for quite some time. We've reviewed it extensively and we extensively use it as part of our research. I used those documents as part of my research for my Easter Sunday book. But hear this. Today, I am making those files public. Before I did this, I informed President Anwar Dissanayake and the government that I would be releasing these documents, and if they had any objection to it, to let me know. I have not received any objection to it. So I believe, in the interest of justice, in the interest of information, it's time the public got their hands on this document. The link for the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, the files that were never released, over 30,000 pages, is available in the description of this video. Please subscribe to this channel. Support us. Our sources are true, our facts are checked, and we only bring you the truth, and we raise the correct questions. This is Fair Comment. I am Jezeem.